Midway on the journey of life, I grew astray from the straight path and woke to find myself alone in a dark wood. And in that dark wood was a hotel run by a wall-eyed old mouse. It was then I realized I had done the time warp back to 1999 and landed in the midst of the Gregory Horror Show. This lesser-known short anime series was one of the first animations by Milky Cartoon, a then-new animation studio in Japan. I'd like to tell you a little more about this show's production, but unfortunately my searches turned up almost nothing. So why don't we head on in? After you. This arc of the Gregory Horror Show, known today as The Nightmare Begins, puts us in the shoes of a man who arrives at Gregory House with no recollection of how he got there. As the nights tick by, he finds that his will to escape and his memories of home are fading away.
Somehow I must get in touch with my family before I disappear.
It's a surprisingly dark and suspenseful narrative, following themes of control and having to face the truth. Our main character's attempts at escape force him to look inside himself and figure out why he ended up at Gregory House, and each attempt at escape becomes more dangerous and surreal than the last. By the end of the arc, it's revealed that Gregory House exists in a realm outside of reality, and Mr. Main Character ended up there after becoming detached from his life. He felt he was just a cog in a machine, a faceless pencil pusher destined to cycle through the motions until death. Everything was going down the toilet and he felt there was nothing he could do. Tragically, even though he makes it back to reality, it only reminds him of why he left and he returns to Gregory House. Or was he really able to leave?
But he's back at the beginning of his living hell.
Don't feel bad, Daddy. We're all in hell.
This is made even more impactful when we get a glimpse at his family, shot in live action no less.
Daddy, did you forget me? Daddy, try to remember. Daddy!
Feeling lost in life is much like getting lost in a labyrinth. All you want to do is get out, but you don't know which path to take. And the path of life is riddled with adversity regardless of what you choose. We all need an escape from reality sometime, but if you just give up on life, it'll lead you to hell. The show looks rather low budget, but for 1999, many props are well modeled and textured. The doors and frames made of wood planks have just the right softness around the edges, and metal objects are more sharply cut and properly reflective. The rooms our main character ends up in offer intriguing sights and reflect the show's story. Roulette Boy's room is a giant game of chance, like Mr. Main Character's outlook on life. You walk the set course hoping for good fortune, and suffer most days until you're released into darkness. This room of mirrors marks a turning point for Mr. Main, the moment where he finally sees for himself what he has become. As for the animation, there are moments when it's quite convincing, like how Judgment Boy shifts when he drops one of his weights, or when Angel Dog waves her wand. Unfortunately, much of the animation feels amateurish. Characters tend to wobble in place and sleepwalk between poses, or slide along the ground like they were on a track. Many characters also have very limited expressions. This isn't always an issue, as some of them only ever have one expression. For characters like Gregory, who express a wider range of emotion, having one expression baked into their face wasn't a good call. His voice often conveys one thing, while his permanent smile doesn't sell it.
What have you got between those big ears of yours?
Please stop it, Mama.
And again, the character's floppy animation tends to make body language hard to read. At the very least, animated eyebrows would boost his expressiveness. Most of the show is shot in first person, an interesting and spooky approach. Placing us in the eyes of the character adds to the mystery of who he is, and creates unease when something scary happens. It's especially effective in scenes like this, when our character is being tailed by a zombie out to steal his body.
Give it to me!
I don't know about you, but I'd feel more secure if this was shot in the third person. Speaking of, there are numerous times where the perspective suddenly changes to third person, which tends to break the immersion. Sometimes it's necessary for exposition, but a clear transition between perspectives would have helped. Now, the residents of Gregory House are distinctly styled and nothing short of bizarre. One that unnerves me every time I see her is Catherine, the hotel nurse. She's a flirty lizard creature with a fetish for drawing blood.
I'm going to pierce it into your red, juicy vein.
Just the thought of having my blood greedily drawn out of me while I'm helpless in bed. It's bone-chilling. And her sheer enjoyment of it makes it that much more disturbing.
There's nothing like the feeling I get from doing this.
Another local in the hotel is Judgment Boy, a living scale that can see into your soul and reveal your true intentions. Even if some of his hypotheticals are silly, his ability is truly frightening.
You chose the contract, and in the meantime, your girlfriend dies alone in her hospital bed. It was your choice. You get to live with it.
Terrible truths we don't want to face. Isn't that something we're all afraid of? Although much of this anime's history is more obscure than the show itself, it's evident this first season was a success. Gregory House continued to haunt the airwaves for 3 more seasons, and was later adapted into a video game and even a manga. The animation may have aged as well as an old jack-o'-lantern, but the show's mysterious narrative, creepy characters, and bizarre locales make it worth a watch. And that concludes this night of the Terrorthon. Thank you for watching.